We as a society really have it wrong when it comes to narcissism, because I hear it thrown around in song lyrics or as insults. Now, I make no excuse for the abuse and bad things that people do to each other regardless of what their psychotype is. And also, we need to understand that the narcissism of an individual is not the initial wound that causes the subsequent harms. I'll explain what I mean by that. Narcissism reflects a failure of the ego to develop in a functional way. Oftentimes, it arises because in someone's earliest years, they were invalidated, they were neglected. They were confronted with highly critical caregivers who convinced them that they are worthless and incapable. Now, going around the world believing that you're incapable just doesn't work because you'll never do anything, you won't function, so the ego learns to do something else. Instead of having received reasonable feedback that sometimes you're doing well and sometimes you're not, it received the extreme of you're never good, you're always bad. So it flips to the other extreme where it cannot tolerate any criticism because criticism is sort of like a trigger of that early life neglect and abuse and degradation. So the person goes around trying to avoid at all costs being seen as anything but perfect. One of the easiest ways to do that is to put other people down, because if other people are low, then I am high. Thus the ego proves to itself that it actually is valid and worthy. When we understand this, we can start to see the humanity in people who have narcissistic personality structures. Because again, they weren't born and made the choice, hey, I've decided I'm going to become a narcissist. These are people whose fundamental human rights as children were neglected. These are people who were abused, traumatized, and tormented when they were at their most vulnerable. Now, anytime I make a video about narcissism, the comment section fills up with people saying, no, you should never empathize with a narcissist, you're going to get hurt, they're evil people, just stay away. And listen, I'm not arguing that you expose yourself to somebody and say, oh, I get it, it's not their fault, they can abuse me. Absolutely not. Abuse is always intolerable, and you should have boundaries and protect yourself. That being said, it's not helpful to look at people as all evil because of this personality construct. It's actually to our advantage to see that shred of humanity, to understand where these behaviors and where these personality types come from. Because then we can contribute to making sure that it doesn't happen again. We can choose to treat people in our lives in a way that helps them feel that internal sense of worth and capability. We can do that with our own children, we can do that with each other, so that we prevent the emergence of additional narcissistic ego structures. Because at the end of the day, living with a narcissistic personality, having one yourself, is really painful. And I can tell you as a psychiatrist, these folks are really suffering. We can't help everyone, but we can at least do our best not to perpetuate the injustices that create this type of suffering in the world.